if Rajang was the endgame monster that haunted me for weeks before I finally gathered the courage to hunt him, Plesioth was the early game monster I deliberately avoided. He was my early game nightmare. And the strange thing is, he never felt like an early game monster. Even today, when I think about Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, Plesioth feels misplaced. Like somebody accidentally dropped a high-ranking monster into a low-ranking quest list and forgot to fix it. My first encounter with him wasn't even a hunt. It was an accident. I was in the desert. Not hunting, not exploring, just farming raw meat. There is an area in the desert with a body of water and a large rock formation in the middle. 3 apsaros wandered nearby. I was focused on them. Carve. Gather. Repeat. I had absolutely no idea what a Plesioth was. Then suddenly, water exploded. My health bar disappeared. I saw a dark triangular shape emerging from the water. The next thing I remember was the base camp. Carted. That was my introduction to Plesioth. I never even got a proper look at him. No dramatic cutscene. No heroic battle. No chance to understand what had happened. Just confusion. Then failure. At that point, I wasn't asking, how do I beat this monster? I was asking, how am I supposed to fight something like that? That was a 2-star Plesioth. A 2-star monster. The game was practically telling me, this is beginner content. Nothing about it felt beginner. I immediately abandoned the quest. And if I'm being honest, I abandoned more than the quest. I abandoned the idea of hunting him. Because if there was a way to skip a Plesioth hunt, I skipped it. If you could somehow look at my Freedom Unite progression from those early days, you would see something strange. Quest after quest completed. Check marks everywhere. Then one empty spot. Plesioth. Waiting. Ignored. Avoided. Delayed. Every opportunity one had to postpone him, I took. And I became very creative when it came to postponing things. It reminded me of Naruto facing Itachi before learning Rasengan, or Luffy challenging Doflamingo without Gear 4th. Technically possible, practically suicidal. That's what Plesioth felt like. A fight I was not supposed to win yet. Or maybe it was more like cat training during high school. For those unfamiliar, cat was military training. The officers loved reminding cadets who was in charge. Some people dreaded it. I certainly did. Fortunately, I had a loophole. I represented our school in academic competitions. Math, physics, English, history. Whenever I learned there was cat training scheduled, I suddenly became very interested in advanced study sessions. Remarkably interested. My trainers became my shield. My books became my excuse. While everyone else was marching under the sun, I was solving equations. That was me with Plesioth. I wasn't defeating him. I was finding reasons not to face him. Or maybe the better comparison is learning how to swim. Back in our province, some adults had a very simple teaching method. No lessons, no instructions, no encouragement. They simply threw you into deep water, then watched. Good luck. Figure it out. That's how I learned to swim. And that is exactly what Plesioth felt like. A monster that didn't teach. A monster that threw you into deep water and expected you to survive. So I skipped him. Not forever, just until I felt ready. The problem was that I never felt ready. Not after the next quest. Not after the next armor set. Not after the next weapon upgrade. There was always another reason to wait. Eventually, however, something changed. I had my Tigrex set. I had upgraded equipment. I had an improved Keizu shock sword. Later, a Devil Slicer longsword. By the standards of my younger self, I had become strong. Strong enough, I hoped, to finally deal with Plesioth. So I returned, and discovered I had been right to fear him. The water cannon was absurd. The damage felt ridiculous. The body slam felt worse. The hitbox seemed to extend beyond reason itself. Even now, Freedom Unite veterans know exactly what I'm talking about. You could swear you were safe. You could swear there was space between you and the monster. Then somehow, body slam. Half your health gone. The slide charge was equally frustrating. The tail sweep felt unavoidable. And every mistake seemed to cost more resources than it should. Potion. Mega potion. Another mega potion. Suddenly, your inventory looked very different from when the hunt began. Good thing he was weak to thunder. Because without thunder damage, I genuinely think my younger self would have abandoned him all over again. Plesioth felt like the first monster that demanded preparation. Not preference. Not courage. Preparation. You didn't casually hunt Plesioth. You prepared for Plesioth. Proper equipment. Enough supplies. A full inventory. Deep concentration. No distractions. No shortcuts. Because Plesioth punished carelessness immediately. Another thing that made him difficult was his size. He was enormous. Larger than I expected. Larger than I was comfortable fighting. Positioning became a challenge. Especially with Greatsword. A fully charged attack sounds wonderful in theory. In practice, it often looked like this. Charge. Wait. Almost there. Almost there. Body slam. Flying across the area. Or charge. Perfect timing. Perfect distance. Missed completely because Plesioth shifted slightly. Then came the tail sweep. A move that somehow hit me regardless of where I thought I was standing. He was too tall. Too large. Too awkward. Too different. Nothing about him felt intuitive. Fishing him out with frogs helped. It created valuable openings. But even that came with consequences. Because pulling Plesioth from the water usually meant making him angry. And an angry Plesioth somehow managed to make unreasonable damage feel even more unreasonable. Every advantage carried a cost. Every solution created a new problem. And over time I began to realize something. Plesioth wasn't difficult because he was unfair. He felt difficult because I wanted him to be something he wasn't. I wanted him to be another monster. Another Tigrex. Another Kazu. Another hunt I could solve with enough persistence. Plesioth demanded something different. Preparation. Readiness. The willingness to admit that maybe I wasn't ready yet. And that was a difficult lesson for a young hunter. Because nobody likes admitting they're not ready. We would rather say, the quest is unfair. The monster is broken. The hitboxes are ridiculous. The game is cheating. Anything except the truth. The truth is that some challenges arrive before we are prepared for them. And there is no shame in preparing first. That's what I was doing every time I skipped Plesioth. Not running away. Preparing. I just didn't know it yet. Then one day I returned. Not because I had finally found a secret strategy. Not because Plesioth had become weaker. Not because the game had changed. I returned because I had changed. The hunts before him had taught me. The failures before him had prepared me. The monsters before him had strengthened me. The hunter who first saw a dark triangle rising from the water no longer existed. And neither did the hunter who spent entire quests inventing excuses to avoid him. What remained was someone ready to try, ready to fail if necessary, ready to learn, ready to hunt. Looking back, Plesioth wasn't the strongest monster I ever faced. Rajang was stronger. Akantor was stronger. Ukanlos was stronger. But none of them taught me what Plesioth taught me. Because Plesioth taught me something before the hunt even began. He taught me that preparation is not weakness. Delaying a challenge is not always fear. Sometimes it is wisdom. Sometimes it is growth happening quietly in the background. Sometimes it is understanding that you are not ready. Yet, 20 years later, I don't remember the exact rewards from my first successful Plesioth hunt. I don't remember how much zenny I earned. I don't remember the carved table. I don't even remember how long the hunt lasted. But I remember the feeling. The feeling of seeing that monster again after spending so much time avoiding him. The feeling of realizing he hadn't changed. I had. For years I thought Plesioth was the monster I was running from. Now I think he was the monster I was preparing for. And maybe that's why I still remember him after all these years. Not because he defeated me, not because he frightened me, but because every hunter has a challenge they postpone until they become the person capable of facing it. For me, that challenge lived in a desert lake, waiting beneath the water, patient, unmoving, knowing that eventually I would have to come back. And one day I did.